So how have you been throughout the pandemic? Like the whole world's going nuts right now. So how have you been holding up?
I've been pretty decent until I tore my ACL, and then it kind of went a little downhill from there. But that really had nothing to do with the pandemic. It was more just like my ACL. So that was
I
kind
guess it's probably like the best time to get injured though, because everything's like at a standstill. So if you're gonna get injured, I think this is probably the best time to do it.
however, you would think that, but people are getting signed into the UFC so easily right now because they need people short notice. And I'm right here in Vegas, so it's like kind of a bummer.
How is it overall? How's the knee? How long of a how long are you gonna be on the sidelines for?
So I tore my meniscus last September and I was out for 9 months. And then a week before I was approved to go, all the gyms shut down. And I was like, are you kidding me? And then by the time all the gyms opened back up, I probably got a good month of solid training in. And then I tore my ACL. And so now I'm a month out of surgery. And so I still have 8 more months till I can get back in the gym.
Oh, that's brutal timing. I mean, back-to-back injuries is always rough. You had a decent or a good fight last time out. It didn't go your way. I guess what was your thoughts on the scorecards? I mean, there's such a big difference between 5-3 and 4-4. So it was really really close fight. What was your thoughts on the fight? And is there any regrets? Anything you would have done differently?
Yeah, I definitely have a ton of regrets from that fight. I went on a little streak where I fought every other month, and so I think by that fourth fight I was just burnt out, and I just didn't really want to be there anymore. And so I don't think the girl was technically better than me. I wasn't that aggressive. I didn't throw that much, and so it really kind of like losses like that really eats you up inside because the person didn't win you or beat you because they're better. They just won because they did a little more. So that really kind of is not fun, especially then getting injured and having to sit out for 2 years after that. It's like kind of fuels my blood to never like have that feeling again because I think I almost took it for granted that I could fight every other month. And so having to sit out for 2 years, I'm like never going to take that opportunity for granted again.
Yes, knowing that now, I mean, what sorts of lessons are you going to apply for your next fight and the fight after that? Like, are you going to rush it? Are you going to just take your time and try to get the right fight? I know a lot of people like to stay extremely busy. They just don't like getting out of camp. Other fighters like the time off, I guess. So what sorts of adjustments are you going to make going forward?
So I think we're going to pick my next fight pretty carefully because I'm on the brink of hopefully making it into the UFC. And so we're going to choose my next opponents really carefully. It'll be on LFA more likely than not. So it should still be a pretty big fight. But yeah, I'm going to ease into it. And I don't want to rush things because I don't want to tear my ACL again. That's a really big risk when athletes rush back into training too quickly. So I'm going to take my time. I probably won't fight for another 11 months, but I know I'll be ready.
How did you find out? Like, was it just like how did it happen? Was it like a snap? Was it just a weird feeling? How'd you know you tore it?
Okay, so it was the last round of the day, and I didn't even want to do this last round. And Roxanne Modafferi comes up, and she's like, "Hey, you want to go this last round? We'll just go light." And I was like, "You're so nice. Yes, of course I will go with you." And then it was like a nice and easy round. It like was nothing too intense. And then I just stepped to the right, and then it almost felt like my knee like slid side to side, and then I just fell to the mat. And I was like, oh shoot. I'm like, this didn't feel like I tore my meniscus, like, because I was used to that feeling. I'm like, I don't know what this was. Hopefully it was just like a sprain or whatever. And then it was an ACL. So really big bummer.
I guess that's why you don't do one last round with one of the baddest women on the planet.
Right? Top 10 in the world. So.
Yep. I want to take a trip down memory lane. I mean, you did not have the greatest, I guess, of starts on paper to your MMA career. I mean, you opened up 1-3, then got a nice little win streak going. At that point, like you see so many fighters who start off their career like that, and then they end up just saying, you know what, I'm done. Did that cross your mind? Was there a point where you were like, maybe this isn't for me? And if so, how did you continue, and how did you find the motivation to keep going?
Yeah, so I think my first 5 fights I ever took, I was undefeated as an amateur, and then I lost a couple on a reservation, but they didn't really count on my record. So technically, I'm like undefeated as an amateur, and then I go into the professional world and I lose my first 2 fights. I fall like head first into a fight on Bellator and I win, and then I fight on Invicta and then I lose. And so it was like kind of just this whirlwind of like, am I good? Am I not good? Do I deserve to be here? Do I deserve to call myself a professional fighter? And it was kind of more like embarrassing because I feel like a lot of people don't take me seriously because I like have eyelash extensions, I curl my hair, like I don't know. I feel like I still have like that really girly girl side of me. And so it was kind of like more embarrassing trying to call myself a professional fighter, but being 1-3, people are like, what is she talking about? She should just quit. But like, obviously the thought to quit did cross my mind, but it was never like something that I would ever do. I'm like, I committed to this. I'm going to push forward. And luckily I did, because then I went and flipped that around and went 3-1 in my last 4, and that one was a split decision. So it was kind of it was a character building experience, I would say.
I want to elaborate on that point a little bit. I think a lot of people look at women martial arts in general as sort of that. Like you hear girls like Valerie Loretta, Paige Van Zant talk about how people don't take them seriously, and then Rose Namajunas just was like, all right, screw it, I'm shaving my head. So how do you kind of change the narrative and almost be taken seriously and leaving all that aside, because you are a professional fighter, eyelash extensions and all that aside. So how do you change the narrative and say, you know what, we are women, but we are here, take us seriously?
Yeah, I don't know. I think you just kind of have to go out there and like not care what people say and just kind of fight. Like I think women's MMA are some of the most exciting fights on the card nowadays. Like especially that Joanna versus the champ. Like that was an insane fight, and I think we're kind of just showing that like women belong there, and that it's like okay to wear a dress or wear heels or like get dressed up, but it's also like okay to go and beat the crap out of each other. And I don't feel like I'm like forging any roads or anything. Like obviously Ronda Rousey was very good looking, Misha Tate. Like there's been plenty of female fighters that have gone before me that like have been taken seriously, even though they are very feminine.
That being said, how did you find the sport? I mean, you hear so many of the other people talk about their wrestling background, karate background. What was it that got you into the sport?
Yeah, so I grew up doing dance gymnastics and cheerleading, and I had 2 older sisters. So I never fought. I never got into any street fights. I grew up in the middle of Utah County, which is one of like the safest areas in the world. And so it was kind of random that my friends took me to some MMA fights my first year of college, and I didn't make the cheer team, the college cheer team, and so I knew I wanted to stay competitive, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. And then after my friends took me to that fight, there was one women fight on the card, and I was like, I'm gonna do that. And then obviously nobody took me seriously, but I found a gym, I started training, and it's been 9 years now, so kind of how it happened.
Yeah, I mean, Jasmine Jasuda Vicious said the same thing. She's like, I went to fights and I ended up watching 2 girls fight, and I said I'm going to do that. And I mean, she's one of the best fighters outside of the UFC who I think she should be signed. So I mean, you hear so many stories of people like that. I got into it from Rampage Jackson going crazy, and I was like, I can relate to that guy. I want to talk about some of the upcoming fights. I'm sure you stay. You watch fights and keep up to date with the UFC. So that Dominic Reyes fight, what's your prediction for that fight?
I don't know who he's fighting or what about that fight. I follow mainly a lot of the women's fights, but yeah. So I wish I could give you a prediction, but I don't. I can't.
All right. That being said, who do you think is the best female fighter of all time? I mean, you hear Gina Carano's name, you hear Ronda Rousey, Chris Cyborg, Amanda Nunes. as someone who watches female fights and as a female fighter, who do you have as number one?
Of all time. That's really hard. I've never actually watched any of Gina Carano's fights, but I would have to say Amanda Nunes. I mean, she looks like she's pretty scary. She knocked out Ronda Rousey. She knocked out Chris Cyborg. So I don't think there's any other female fighter has a leg to stand on to say that they're the greatest of all time. So I'm going to have to give it to Amanda.
As someone who's can't compete right now, what's your thoughts on events such as the UFC and Bellator putting on events in front of an empty arena, even though there's like the pandemic and all this other stuff going on? They've gotten a lot of negative attention. But as someone who I'm sure is dying to get in the cage, what's your opinion on the whole thing?
I think it's completely badass. I'm super supportive of it, and I am like proud to call myself an MMA fighter because they're doing that. Like they found a way around the system. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this whole pandemic thing, and so I'm just glad that the UFC found a way to make it happen safely, and then give everybody some entertainment and some like positive things to look forward to during this pandemic.
I want to talk a little bit about stuff outside of mixed martial arts. You, despite being injured, you do have your own business and you're actively promoting it. So talk a little bit about Bad Athletics and why you founded it.
Yeah, so I started Bad Athletics because I know a lot of the fitness industry just forces things down women's throat that I think are very toxic for them and how they look at themselves. Like they tell them that they need to work out so they can look a certain way, or that so they can have like a bikini body, or so that they can get a man or whatever. And I want to take all that bull crap away, like, and bring it back to what it's like meant to be. And so Bad Athletics, what we're trying to do is to help women build up their athleticism and focus more on how their body's functioning and how they're fueling it, how they're feeling, and kind of bring back health and fitness to what it actually is for. And that's for your health and fitness, not to look good. So yeah, that's kind of why I started it. And then with that, if you don't know what Bad Athletics is, I have a workout challenge, and then we have a meal plan with that, and then we sell supplements through the meal plan, and then we also have some like gear and apparel that go along with it.
One of those flavors is strawberry, and as someone who absolutely loves strawberry, I was so happy when I saw that came out. I was like, oh my god, I want to try this. I'm tired of this vanilla. Vanilla is disgusting, so it's nice to see that came out. How has the pandemic affected it? Like, I feel like, is it booming? Is it, has it kind of gone stagnant with people getting lazy? Like, how's the orders been, and how has the success been given everything that's going on?
So starting the month of March, we had our biggest month ever. And then ever since then, we've been having our biggest month ever, month over month. And so we just barely ended out our biggest month ever again. And it's August 1st today, so for September. So it's been awesome. I think, I don't know what it is, but maybe people are just staying home, so they need a workout challenge that they can do at their house, or they're just purchasing stuff online a little bit more. I don't know what it is, but it's been awesome for our business. So I've actually been happy about that.
How is networking it abroad? I mean, I've always wanted to start something of my own, but the one thing was like, I don't think Atlanta, Canada really has a market for what I want to promote. So how did you market it abroad and make it really global?
Yeah, so I'm lucky to have a really awesome business partner who has built a supplement company from the ground up before and sold it for millions. And so he has kind of helped me and like showed me the way, I guess. And so I think together we can kind of like do some pretty big things. He's an awesome marketer, and yeah, so it's not necessarily me. I kind of just do the things that he tells me to do, and it kind of just makes a good team.
Thank you very much for the time. I mean, I've wanted to try some of your stuff, so I'm going to have to place an order on it. And hopefully that knee gets better, and hopefully we can do this again when there's a fight camp or post-fight or something more exciting than a torn leg. So let's do this again sometime. But until then, all the best. Hope your leg recovers, and best of luck with Bad Athletics.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me on here. And I wish you the best of luck too.